If you were a medieval knight, what weapon would you use? I'm going to tell you my answer, and I'd love to know what your weapon of choice would be, so let's get going. Next Total War campaign video coming up either Sunday or Monday, and I'm planning to get one out every week. On the top right, you can go check the last one. It features Antiochus the Turd, the future pharaoh of Egypt, and some elephant action, of course. Alright, let's get started and talk about medieval weapons, because who doesn't like some good old medieval violence? And also an excuse to show some more Mount and Blade Warband gameplay. But Turd, Warband is old, you should be playing Bannerlord. Are you buying me Bannerlord, Mr. Toilet? But well, no, but you have... Yeah, I thought so, so now go wipe some poo-poo butts. Also, big thanks to Scipio who gave me this idea on a livestream, so grande abraço para o Brasil. The medieval period is quite large and goes from the 400s AD to 1400s, at which point the Renaissance begins, or roughly from the fall of the Roman Empire in 476 to the beginning of the Exploration Age in the late 1400s. Armor and weapons change a lot from the beginning to the end of this period. It is almost 1000 years after all, and armor went all the way from this to this. Armor technology developed immensely, and to combat this, a wide array of weapons were also developed. At the start of the medieval period, spears, swords, axes and shields were the most common depending on region. But as armor developed and plate armor became more common, we started seeing that these thrusting and slashing weapons just got less and less effective. And to combat this, pole arms and blunt weapons such as maces got more and more common. Contrary to what pop culture might lead you to believe, armor actually worked. Swords are, generally speaking, crappy weapons against decent armor, like chainmail with gambeson. Even a good gambeson alone might be able to stop a sword from slashing you. You might now be thinking about the Romans, but the Romans, you say, yes, they used very pointy, short swords. Very, very pointy, short swords. And they conquered the world, so they clearly had a point. This is because pointy thrusting swords are good against chainmail. They stab the rings and might actually break them from within, and they can also pierce through padding if sharp enough. But they do need to be quite pointy and sharp. But again, as smithing technology improved and the quality of the chainmail improved, as well as the quality of the padding that was beneath, well, the effectiveness of swords just diminished on the battlefield. While in the early to mid-Middle Ages, a gambeson and a chainmail was common on the battlefield, by the late Middle Ages, many knights would also be wearing full suits of plate on top. The way to defeat a knight wearing so much protection would be to throw the man into the ground and then stab him with a dagger or some extremely pointy blade on the slits and openings of his armor. But this wasn't an easy feat, not at all. Needless to say, spears and swords were virtually pointless, pun intended, against such levels of protection, and the solution was to either treat these knights with bills or other types of pole arms with hooks, stab them on the armor openings with extremely pointy tips on poles like the tip of a poleaxe, halberd or bill, though this would be very, very difficult to do, or finally just use blunt force. Several types of maces, or for example warhammers, well, no, not those kinds of warhammers, come on, we're historical people here. Yes, these warhammers, very, very well done, were developed. You might think that blunt force isn't too effective against a tank, but when that tank is tightly fit into the person inside, if you apply enough force on the armor, that kinetic energy will have to dissipate somewhere, and that somewhere is on the wearer. The gambeson and padding on the helmet will, of course, help dissipate some of this energy, absorbing it. But a well-placed hit with a mace to the head of a knight could incapacitate them, even if for just a few seconds, allowing the attacker to go for the finishing move. However, if you get a direct mace to the face, even wearing padding and a good plate helmet, at the very least, you'll get a concussion. Okay, wow. What a big explanation and context giver. Most people assume knights would go around on the battlefield waving their little swords around, slashing and piercing enemies left, right and center. But that is not really what it was like. Yes, knights had swords, and swords were part of the culture, but swords were just not battlefield weapons. I am sorry. If you had to draw your sword in a medieval battlefield, I'd pray for you if I was religious, because you would be in a very bad situation. Anyway, what you are here to know is, if Turd was a medieval knight, what weapon would he use? Ladies and gentlemen, the moment we are all waiting for, José is hitting the drums like a true member of Team Azate, so take this short time to subscribe to become also a Team Azate member, because it's amazing. Like the video for the wealth of information you already got. Tell me your medieval weapon of choice, and my personal medieval weapon of choice is... o bacalhau. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it's the codfish.
I'm in Portugal.
Alright, I jest. Though imagining a knight going around the battlefield with a codfish and hitting everybody with it, that's kind of a funny thing. Yeah, that could work. Somebody do make a sketch or something. But to answer the question seriously, it depends. Yes, that's correct. It depends. The correct answer to all the questions. What is the color of the sky? It's blue. Wrong. What if it's nighttime? It's not blue anymore. So it depends, bro. Am I going to be fighting an armored opponent or an unarmored opponent? Do I know what weapon is my opponent using? Are we dueling or is it a battlefield? The question is haunted by so many conditionals, so I'll just answer if I was fighting on a battlefield against armored opponents and then in a duel situation against unarmored opponents. On the battlefield, I'd pick a pole hammer. It has reach, a hammer tip allowing for blunt damage against plate armored opponents, and a spike allowing me to use that against chainmail or less armored opponents, and a hook that would give me some flexibility with the weapon. The drawback is that it might be unwieldy because it's big and heavy on the tip, in which case I think a mace is a good choice. What you lose in weapon reach you gain in ease of use, even though they are heavy, okay? Maces are heavy. In a duel situation where both you and your opponent have little armor, I'd use a spear and a shield. A big, round shield. The spear gives me reach and it's one of the easiest weapons to use, while the shield will offer you protection and make it less likely for you to get hit. You can use the spear overarm or underarm, and changing grips is actually quite easy if you practice for a couple of hours. The only issue with the spear is if you get rushed. If your opponent comes in close enough, the spear is no longer effective, and as such you must keep your opponent at bay. But that is easy when you're a member of Team Azate, of course, and all you need to do is subscribe to the channel. Let the discussion on medieval weapons flow in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. Have a great day, and I want to wish everyone a very happy Portugal, caralho. And I'll see you all on the next video, of course. Peace.
I'm in Portugal.